Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thanks to our witnesses and to my colleagues. Appreciate having this hearing. A few years ago, we saw a few large banks adopt a policy of refusing cash deposits. Is accepting cash deposits a liability? And if so, is it more of a market risk or a regulatory bank secrecy risk? Anyone? Mr. Diamond?
You're reminding me of something from years ago. I do believe it was a regulatory risk that made us very cautious about accepting cash deposits, particularly interstate.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Scharf?
I don't have anything to add.
So the regulators have intimidated the banks, the mega banks, as my chairwoman likes to refer to you all, to the point where no one even speak about taking cash. Are permissionless payments a risk to this financial system? Permissionless, like cash, like I can give a person cash, whether it's cash or some sort of electronic payment. Is a permissionless peer-to-peer transaction some sort of threat to the financial system?
No.
No? Okay, that's good to hear. I was getting a little nervous. It's hard because a lot of people still deal in cash. When we talk about people that don't necessarily use your bank or some of the barriers to people using the financial sector at any size or scale, they're still transacting in the cash economy. And as people become more nervous about, frankly, whether it's government or just surveillance capitalism, the idea that everybody needs to know everything about every transaction and everyone else. We've got a couple colleagues who are really passionate about digital identity. You basically got to background check somebody to even talk to them. People are kind of opting out of that, and they're choosing cash. I think that's a big factor in the crypto space. Just by show of hands, does your bank custody any crypto assets for any level of client? Not much. So not much change there. There are a lot of regulatory challenges that have made that hard as well. And certainly we've worked, some of us have for years to remedy that. Our financial markets, we're home to about 5% of the world's population, almost 25% of the world's GDP, but roughly 50% of the world's invested capital in capital markets. Unfortunately, in the crypto space, roughly 70% of the liquidity is offshore. And I think that's a burden for this body here in Congress to provide regulatory clarity in those things. And I just, note the, hesitancy for titans of industry, people in the financial sector, literally atop the sector, to address some of these issues. And I think it's a concern when we look at regulators, how the power the regulators have over the sector. And frankly, one that I think was a win of sorts was not seeing Omarova confirmed for the Office of Comptroller of Currency. No one made President Biden nominate her or Senator Sherrod Brown give her high praise and walk her around the Senate and try to get her confirmed. But she's someone who described herself as radical and held fundamentally different views on the banking industry, going so far as to suggest that the Federal Reserve or even the Postal Service should be retail banking outlets. Mr. Diamond, do folks that have no industry experience and only academic experience have a hard time understanding soundness and risk in the private sector?
I would love to see the Federal Reserve be in the retail banking business and running call centers and operating centers and ATMs and branches and hiring and all that kind of stuff. And I would love to see more people who are not academics and lawyers and economists in a lot of jobs in Washington, D.C. I think that, there's a great quote, in theory, practice and theory are the same. In practice, they're not. I think the country would benefit greatly from something like that.
Yeah, I've been concerned because I think there's a study that showed the median years of private sector experience in the Biden administration is 0. So hopefully the next few years changes that. Ms. Fraser, I have just a few moments left. Your bank does a lot with sanctions, as do all of yours. But we look at the international aspects of it. The Office of Foreign Asset Controls.
I need to know how to pronounce Monahan.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I'm just
that's someone please mute. When you look at the opportunity to improve that, the way that the system is done causes a little bit of collateral damage for domestic companies. Do you have any ideas on how we could reform that? And if you can't finish your answer, could you please send something to our office about your experience?
I'd be delighted to. It will involve international collaboration.